Hi everyone, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a video about how to stay positive when you don't have a lot of money. And I wanted to do this topic because I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, especially if you're like a young student in a place in your life where you're not really where you want to be financially, or it's even applicable if you have had a job but then recently lost it, or just something financially has happened so that your situation is not optimal, it's not what you want it to be. And so I wanted to give some tips for how you can stay positive amidst those times. For me, it's been applicable because I've been a student my whole life, so it's something I've had to think a lot about. A lot of my tips are going to be religiously based because for me, my method of coping often defaults back to my religion, because there are so many things that come with Islam that teach us how to be better people, that teach us how to be how to cope with hardship. So that's where a lot of my tips kind of come from, the inspiration, I guess. So something I really want to emphasize on my YouTube channel is how Islam is a way of life. And when you're Muslim, you have like a whole set of resources in front of you that kind of teach you how to live your life in a positive way, and different things about being Muslim affect different aspects of your life. So let's jump into the topic. My first tip for staying positive when you don't have a lot of money is to rely on Allah. And what does that mean? What it means to rely on Allah is knowing that whatever is meant for you will reach you, and whatever is not meant for you or was not willed for you will not reach you. So whatever in life you're going through, that was meant to happen to you. And whatever in life, you haven't achieved yet, that was meant for you to have not achieved that. And so kind of keeping that in mind and not kind of dwelling over the fact that you're not in a place in your life that you're happy with financially, but kind of just being like, okay, well, this is what's meant for me right now, so I need to be satisfied with it. So it really means being in a state of acceptance with what God has apportioned you, or what God has given you. So my next tip for staying positive amidst not having a lot of money is trying to be consciously thankful of the things that you have. So this can come in multiple forms. To be thankful, you can like literally write down a list, be like, okay, these are all the things that I do have. These are all like the financial resources that I do have. These are all like the abilities that I do have with my current situation, and kind of just like focusing on those things and being thankful for them. But for Muslims, a lot of being thankful to God for what you have is simply obeying Him and doing your obligations, making sure that you do your obligations and that you avoid sins. That's a huge part of being thankful to God for what He has given us, because Allah ordered us to do certain things and to avoid certain things in life. And so to be thankful to Him, we can obey Him. So you thank God for the endowments that He's given you by not sinning and by not disobeying Him, and sticking with that, even when it's difficult to do so. My third tip for staying positive when you don't have a lot of money is simply being patient. That's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially in this day and age of like instant gratification. Like you want to have quick information, you can find things really easily, like you YouTube like how to do so-and-so and you will figure it out. You don't need to wait to kind of like discover how something is going to get accomplished a lot of the time. So being patient is a huge part of being happy, being like, okay, this is my circumstance right now. And I'm thankful for what I have, and of course I'm always striving to do better, striving to provide for my family, for example, in a better way in the future, but I'm going to be patient with my current situation. In Islam, there's actually a specific reward, a specific religious reward granted to those who are patient during times of hardship, during times of calamity. And depending on how you deal with those calamities or deal with those hardships kind of determines whether or not you get that reward. When a Muslim is afflicted with a hardship, they right there and then they receive a reward. And whether or not they keep that reward is depending on their reaction to the calamity. So you could call not having a lot of money a calamity. I mean, it also depends on how you look at the situation. If somebody is really distraught about the fact that they're not in the financial place that they want to be, that's definitely a calamity. If somebody has just lost a job and they're really distraught because they don't have the income flow coming in that they had before, that's a calamity. So when somebody is afflicted with a calamity, and instead of going out and doing something bad, or instead of going out and committing a sin so that they can like get the money that they feel like they need right now, instead of doing that, they just sit back and they say alhamdulillah, like alhamdulillah, thank God that I have the things that I have, that I'm in the situation that I have. Alhamdulillah, I'm still alive, I'm still breathing, and life goes on. And they, you know, worship more, and they, you know, thank God more, and they make dua more, and they, you know, make sure that they get all their prayers done, and they don't go out and drink alcohol, for example, which is another sin in Islam. When a person does that, then their reward increases, because they're not only being patient mentally, but they're also, you know, thanking God for what they have by obeying Him. But if somebody is in a situation where, you know, they've just lost their job, or they're a student and they don't have a lot of money, and then in order to get money because they feel like they need it so desperately, they go out and they work a job that has haram in it, for example, like they start working at a bar selling alcohol. That's something that in the religion is sinful. So if they then go out and do that because they feel like I need money now and this is kind of the only option that they have, or they think that that's the only option that they have, and then they go out and do that, then their special reward for having been inflicted with the calamity disappears. It goes away. So I guess I urge people, especially Muslims, when they are inflicted with a calamity, meaning like the calamity of not having a lot of money, to stay patient and stay steadfast on what they need to do religiously, and just kind of trust that good things will come to them when they're meant to come to them. Another tip that I have for staying positive when you don't have a lot of money, things that you can do to kind of better your situation, is to give charity. And this may sound like counterintuitive, like why would you give charity if you already like barely have enough money to like get by? So there's so much religious reward associated with giving charity and giving to poor Muslims. So, and there's even more reward when it's difficult for you to do so, when it's hard for you to give that money because you don't have a lot to begin with. So it's such a rewardable thing. And like, I personally know people always talk about this when they go and they give like $100 to poor Muslims, for example, and you know, especially if that's something that's hard for them to do, like they don't have $100 just coming at them like every paycheck, or they don't have $100 just like at their fingertips, so that's not easy for them to do. It doesn't even have to be $100, it can be like $10. $10 can be hard for somebody to give, you know, especially if you're in a situation where you don't have a lot of money coming in. So no matter what the amount of money is, I personally know people who they have given that money, you know, with a sincere intention for the sake of God, not for the sake of impressing people, not for the sake of seeming like such a generous person, but simply for the sake of God. They've given money, and then they somehow see it come back to them in various ways that are unexpected. So like, and not only will they see that money come back to them soon thereafter, but they might see that money and more. So like, they give $100, and then like the next week somehow they're gifted randomly by somebody, you know, $150, for example. Of course, that shouldn't be your reasoning for giving charity. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna give so that I can get more in return. You should do it with a sincere intention, regardless of whether or not you get what you gave in return. So bottom line, when you're patient and you give the little that you have to help others, you'll see that sustenance come back to you. And it's really a beautiful thing. So it's something I strongly advise, even when you are going through a financial hardship. Give charity, be generous. You'll feel better as a person too, knowing that you've done something that is good for other people. It'll make you mentally feel better. And my last tip for staying positive when you don't have a lot of money is to work to change your circumstances. I mean, this may seem obvious, but you know, when I advocate for relying on Allah and being thankful for your situation and being, you know, patient with your situation, I'm not saying like sit back and do nothing. Relying on Allah does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean that you then like can't go out and look for a job. It doesn't mean that you can't, you know, go and try to make money. Relying on Allah kind of falls somewhere in between going out and making money and sitting home and doing nothing. It's like somewhere in between. It means being satisfied with what you have. So if in your current situation you're not working, or you can't work, or whatever the situation is, you're satisfied with it. If like you go out and you get a job and you start making money, you're satisfied with it, you're happy with it, you're patient with it. But it doesn't mean that, you know, oh, I'm just gonna rely on Allah, so I'm just gonna sit back and do nothing and wait for the money to come to me. That's not that's not what I'm advocating for, and you're gonna feel unproductive, and yeah, you're just not gonna feel happy doing that. Relying on Allah really just means not stressing out too much about what you don't have, and knowing that Allah is merciful and Allah provides sustenance. But like I said, it doesn't mean that if you find yourself in a situation where you don't have a lot of money, that you don't go out and look for a side hustle, or you don't go out and look for a full-time job. If you think about it, like, going out and getting a job is not necessarily the answer to your problems. There are people out there who work 7 days a week, 2 jobs, and they make very little, or they make only just enough to get by. And there are people who sit at home and they do just a few things here and there, and they just don't do as much, and yet they have money coming towards them, like through family members or through whatever. So everybody's situation is different. So relying on Allah just simply means being satisfied with what you have, knowing that what you have is what was meant for you, and just kind of having faith in that. So those are my 5 tips, I believe, for staying positive when you don't have a lot of money, and I hope you enjoyed them. Comment down below if you've ever used any of these tips before, or if you have anything extra to add to some of the things that I mentioned in this video. I would love to hear. But don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel to show your support, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye! سلام الله على الهادي رسول الله صلى